What's up, everyone? Lane, Booth, Andrea here today to help you bring more data insights to small business so that you can know the numbers that grow the business. And today we're going to talk about the data magic behind one of our really amazing success stories with a massage practice. So how she was able to really fast track her revenue growth and profit growth by simply looking at not just any numbers, but the right numbers for her massage practice. So if you are a service provider or you are maybe an OBM, VA, or consultant working with a service provider like a massage practice, tune in because we're going to talk to you about the top metrics that really helped move the needle for her business very quickly. So, Dre, you excited to dive in today?
Sure am.
All right, awesome. So, guys, one of the key things that we wanted to share with you guys today is like, there could be a lot of metrics that you could look at, right? Like we all know Facebook has a ton of metrics they can throw at you every day. Instagram, YouTube, whatever your CRM is these days. We've got QuickBooks and Xero and so many softwares that are supporting our businesses, but most people aren't tapping into the data insights that all these little data crumbs are really telling you about the business. So today I want to share with you three key metrics that you may want to consider for the service provider or massage practice that maybe you're supporting in business as well. So the first one, which is pretty common against most service providers out there, is something like if you don't have this in place, you are not going to know when revenue is about to dip. Like anybody here ever experienced a cash flow crunch in your business, right? So one of the key things you can do is start looking at appointment counts per week. Okay. So Drea, how about you tell us like why was appointment counts per week so important for this business owner in particular?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things that have been highlighted through pulling this up. So one is getting a clearer vision of what their capacity is, right? So what do they tend to work at? So they know and they feel that when they're booking appointments, that there's just they don't have enough space, right? They have so many clients coming in that they're booking so far out, but didn't have a clear vision of what that actually meant in terms of appointments per week. And we'll talk a little bit more about appointments per therapist. And room to get an idea of, okay, well, what is even the capacity that they can do? And sometimes that highlights, okay, what they might need to do some more with scheduling, or they might need to do some more with some other pieces of the business. But seeing those appointments by week really highlights essentially what they're capable of. And then also, I think Lane kind of pointed to this a little, is by seeing this on a graph, you start to see seasonality. So you see the impact visually of what the 4th of July week does into capacity. You see this dip. And then when they're planning the business, you know, okay, we have particular weeks that historically are low, right? We've got 4th of July, maybe there's, Memorial Day, right? Anywhere there's a particular close in the business, you can physically see what that's going to do in terms of count, and then very quickly get to what that could mean in terms of revenue and profit.
Absolutely. So yeah, a great example that you might be seeing with other massage practices or appointment-based businesses is the seasonal or holiday specific rush. So, hey, it's Valentine's Day. Everybody's buying their significant other and mom a package to go and get a massage, or Mother's Day, or some of these other very significant uh important holidays. Wow, couldn't get that out. Important holidays that where we want to give to others. So this is an example of, well, yeah, that is great. That's great that it went up, but I'm not so concerned about that date because I know it's going to go up every year. I need to focus on making this baseline go up. So not until we start seeing and helping our clients do some testing to really move the needle up, 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 and it's June 3rd that doesn't really have any special connotations with it. Like we want that baseline to go up even when there's not significant seasonality impacting their appointment count. That is when you start really, I love the concept in, I'm actually an engineer by trade, but the lean manufacturing talks about like, hey, you know what, you've got a river, right? Like this is the to Dre's point, the capacity that you can flow your business through, but you've got like all these rocks that keep like boulders, you're just trying to float down the river, and you've got all these rocks that just keep bumping into, cash flow hits, team member doesn't show up to work, man, taxes are due and they're more than we thought they were going to be. But you know, you're going to keep hitting these rocks until you raise the water line. So until you raise the baseline, so in this case, like appointments per week is the closest tie to revenue and cash coming into the business. And yet it's also something that the team can manipulate, that can own. They can absolutely be supporting the number of appointments that they're getting booked per week. Whereas if you just said like, hey, Trudy, your job is to create, you know, $20,000 for the business this week or this month, a little bit less clear on how she might go about that, right? But this is a great metric for this appointment-based business. So appointments per week. Drea, why didn't we do appointments per day? Why am I?
Yeah, so the week tends to be kind of a core planning piece, right? Per day. So this particular business, you might not have therapists that work every day. It's not as consistent as office work, where you're guaranteed your employees are going to be there Monday through Friday. Oftentimes with this type of business, you might have, oh, okay, this therapist works at our practice Monday through Wednesday. This other therapist works, you know, Friday and Wednesday, whatever that might be. So when you are able to plan that out in a week, you can adjust against the varying schedules. And there's a lot less variability from week to week than there is from day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and it's natural to have appointments rise over the weekend. So you know, to start berating your team for like, why is Monday so low? Then being able to smooth out like how did things look for the total week tends to be a better metric to track over long term as well.
And I'll just add a little bit there. We will look into what the daily counts look like historically, so that there is an opportunity to say, oh, as Lane mentioned, weekends tend to have higher rates of appointments than say a Monday or a Tuesday. So understanding the flow of the business in that way helps your business owner be able to plan their resources against that, or potentially plan promotions to say, well, we have this open space. It is better to bring someone in, even if we're doing some type of marketing or promotion against it, to increase the number of people that are coming in on those light days. So oftentimes we're doing some ad hoc analyses to help them bring up that water line and the metric that we're tracking.
So good. All right, awesome. You guys ready for metric number 2? All right, here we go. So this metric, if you are not looking at this in your appointment-based business, you're probably missing out on some opportunities, because to Dre's point, like there are some things you do want to get more granular on. And so it's not always just about the appointments. Sometimes it's about, well, who are those appointments booking with? Like how efficient is our team, or how many, what kind of performance does it look like? What does the performance look like by therapist? Andrea, how about you talk a little bit more to why this metric was particularly important for this client? And I'll draft an example of what that looked like.
Yeah, so for this client, she actually has trouble bringing in new therapists, right? There's a labor shortage for her. So understanding who her top performers are, essentially her full-timers versus her part-timers, and what their individual capacity is, helps her then plan the scheduling, and then understanding what the ebb and flow of the business can be if a particular therapist is underperforming in terms of count, or maybe if they're underperforming in terms of count, diagnosing what's going on. Do they not have clients that are repeating with them? Or is there something happening where, you know, they're not coming to work, or they have more no-shows, right? Where you can start to dig into a little bit more detail to really understand how can you in aggregate help provide some stability into your overall appointments per week.
Absolutely. So when you are looking at you've got limited rooms at the massage practice, right? Like there's only so many rooms that can be supporting the turnover and turnaround for an appointment. And if you don't have team members that can help fill those rooms, like your rooms are your money makers, right? So if you've got a person assigned to each room, and Molly is there 5 days a week and pretty much full time, and then you've got a bunch of part-timers like Joe, well, that's going to create some additional challenges. Like, okay, now we've got to create a share room situation, or like where Joe's there for 2 hours and then we have to bring in Betty for another block of hours to maximize the capacity for the practice, right? So being able to see this visually, like on average, how are these employees performing, is going to basically help you create the new strategy that's going to allow you to maximize. Makes sense? Dre,
Yeah,
anything to add to that?
I add a specific example with this particular client. She had a long-standing therapist who had a very niche service offer, and their agreement was with this long-standing therapist that this therapist had a room 1 day a week, but was only booking like 1 to 3 clients per day, which meant there was a missed opportunity of other appointments being booked at that time. So she has this relationship with this therapist. They have this familiar relationship, and she feels bad to limit her because this is essentially this therapist's livelihood as well. But really putting this metric out lets you clearly know what the missed revenue opportunity is, and that becomes a different conversation. It takes the personal feelings and emotions out of we need to change the way our agreement is, because there is a clear revenue opportunity that can be calculated.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I know, like, I feel like we've seen this with a lot of appointment-based businesses where even the owner was one of the service providers in the early stages or in the early days. And now they're in this like tug of war of trying to like, I love my clients, but I also need to like run the business. And this same sort of, to your point, Drea, like that can also be applied to what's the missed revenue opportunity by you being stuck in serving appointments 4 days out of the 5 days of the business week. And yet actually you're still working all week long because you're just trying to catch up in running the business and supporting those clients too. So I feel like that's another great way to just be really clear on what is the opportunity, the revenue opportunity, when you have the data to back it up. All right. Awesome. All right. Third metric. You guys ready for it? Let's talk about one of our other top metrics for a massage practice. So metric number 3, like when this one is super important because I feel like so many people are only looking at like top line revenue, and it can give you a false sense of security if you're not really clear on, well, what's mostly contributing to that revenue, or, hey, you finally got revenue in the bank and you breathe a sigh of relief because like, hey, you're going to make payroll this week, but then you're not really sure how it happened. You're not really sure if you can replicate it again. So that's why the third metric we wanted to share with you guys today was revenue by service type. Service type. Breaking down the income streams so that you can clearly see, do I have consistency? Do I have like, how do I need to rank these? How do I need to start staffing for maybe trends, maybe something starting to take off? Makes a big difference. So Drea, you want to talk to this metric a little bit here?
Yeah, so this particular client, as I mentioned earlier, has trouble staffing. When a therapist does leave, it's a difficult thing for her to replace that therapist. So over time, she started adding additional services that were non-labor based. So for example, float tanks, infrared saunas, and other things where there doesn't rely on a particular person to service that appointment. And those appointment types are more profitable in the business. So while she's working to grow her revenue in the business, she's also looking to grow her overall profitability. So we are looking to track one, as we talked about earlier, the appointment types by therapists, but also the appointment types by these services and the revenue these services generate in. So we're not just looking at the appointment count, but the revenue from each, and then the profit from each. So we can, over time, the target is to increase not just revenue, but the percent of profit as well.
So, very probable scenario that I'm drawing for you right here. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus a little more. So this is like, I went ahead and I also just articulated to Dre's point here, like, if you were able to look at service type by gross profit, like you might see total revenue coming in a certain way for like massage practice is probably going to be the top revenue. But if you start breaking this down by gross profit, it does help the business owner make more strategic, profitable decisions for growth. So in this case, like, hey, this massage practice could probably increase capacity by another 20% if they really got all their stuff together. But that's still going to only generate an extra, at max 20% of revenue. And it's probably going to, have some better profit margins, but we're not going to like rock the boat too much here. However, like infrared sauna or something, like that's going to have much higher profit margins because there's not a lot of staff involved. There's not a lot of fluctuations in cost involved to run this. So the profit margin is going to be much higher, and most likely is going to be, once you start filling that capacity, it's going to be very steady because you don't have to worry about, your team members calling in sick or, needing to step out for the day or maintain capacity and, room sharing and all that other stuff. Like it's going to end up being very consistent and a great way to increase the total profitability of the business. And then just a fun one that I added, a lot of times places like this will have products as well. And what we tend to see is like, they're kind of like floating around and then somebody gets like a brilliant idea on how to sell like a face cream for the week. And they're like, let's do the face cream. And then they do that and they're like, okay, we did it. And then it drops off. And then they're like, oh, wow. Well, remember the last time we had profit, we boosted a product and it did really well. Let's do that again. And so it just ends up being this like cycle of ups and downs. So until the product really becomes part of the system and the process that is put in place, not until that is actually set up do you actually start seeing a lot more consistency with product sales inside a service-based business. Drea?
Yeah, and especially thinking through, as Lane talked about, the process behind it. So the labor in this business are therapists. Their specialty is not selling, right? Their passion, their competency is in massage and other services. So when they are tasked to sell product, they just don't do it well. That's not what they want. So there has to be another avenue to support that line of business in a way that works well for not just the seller, but also for the person and the client purchasing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So folks, hopefully you learned a lot from these top 3 metrics that we walked you through today. This is the magic behind the data that is available when you start looking for it, when you know how to use it. Use your data powers for good, not for evil, right? So this has been super fun to share this with you. And I want to encourage you guys, like if you are already seeing the power of using numbers to know the numbers that can grow your business, I want to encourage you to hop on to one of our upcoming trainings. You can go to lanebooth.com/grow, and we will be showing you some more ways that you can start leveraging data to build better businesses, to really focusing on those small businesses. So if you are a tech VA, an online business manager, director of ops, like consultant that is supporting other small businesses. We really focus on helping you help your clients with growth, and also at the same time, really leveraging your skill set, leveraging your suite of services to charge more, work less, and still get clients even better results than you are right now. Drea, anything else to close us out today?
Nope, that was perfect summary.
Okay, awesome. Hope to see you guys very soon. Check out lanebooth.com/grow. We'll see you there.